actually, Chris. So to switch from recognizing the problem or the gap to effective communication, let me ask you this. So in your book, The First Minute, you talk about starting conversations that get results. So can you share a key technique from that book that IT and business teams can apply? And I think your book does a great job with this, is a technique, like a tactical technique that your book, The First Minute, shares in order to help with effective communication.
Yeah, I think of the techniques in the book, and there are a few, the one that best helps is creating a summary using a method called GPS, Goal Problem Solution. And it's a 3-step summary, a 3-step process to create a summary that anybody can understand. And I'll give an example. So it's Goal Problem Solution. If I was a business team talking to my IT support, I might say, our goal is to be able to produce weekly reports with all of the sales data from all of our agents. The problem is that process is manual at the moment, and I'm copying and pasting between spreadsheets. What I'd like as a solution is an automated report where I can just click a couple of buttons and that sales data is given to me. If the business team describes what they want in that summary approach, goal, problem, solution, it should make pretty clear sense to the tech support team. And it's also stripped out all of the background as to why I want it, and here's all the problems that we've been experiencing with our existing process. Like, strip all of that stuff out and just get to, here's what I want to achieve, here's the problem that's stopping me from achieving it, and here's where I'd like your help for the solution. Then, if the tech teams use the same approach, let's say talking about an issue in building that report, the tech teams might come back and say, hey, I know your goal is to have this automated report where you just click a button and it's produced. The problem is we're getting information from 7 different systems, and that's really complicated to pull together. What I want to talk to you about is, can we have a 2-step solution where instead of clicking 1 button, you click 3 buttons to make this work? Is that an okay solution? So it's summarizing at a very high level, but still stating the goal and that the end user wants. You talk about your problem in the terms that they understand, and then you're in the solution discussion.
Yeah, got it. I would like to ask you a question, maybe slightly change gears just a little bit, but I recognize in our work how valuable email communication is, right? Most people communicate a great deal through email nowadays, but how important is the role of concise email communication as outlined in Effective Emails in bridging the IT business gap?
First, I love that you've found my Effective Emails book. That's not a common one.
I should add, Chris, that we will add that to our show notes as well. But that's actually a topic that we've discussed with other guests. And, I think sometimes the value of effective emails is underappreciated. So would love to hear what you have to say on that topic.
Oh, yes, I'm with you 100%. The value of effective emails is undervalued. So you asked about what is the role of concise communication in email and how valuable is concision or short emails. I'd say, first of all, concise communication is good for everyone, no matter what the channel, whether this is verbal, email, posters, semaphore, whatever you're using, short is better. And specific to email, here's the reason short is best. First of all, emails that are too long won't be read, period. Anyone who gets, well, maybe not period, but the chances of them being read are greatly reduced. Now, anecdotally, I could give an example where if you open an email and see it's really long, many people will close it and move on to the next short email with the good intention of coming back to the long one later, but they never quite manage to do that. That's the anecdotal evidence. The actual evidence comes from a great study done with the Boston Globe. The newspaper, the Boston Globe, did a study a few years ago where they sent an email out that was 149 words or 150 words. So not a lot, but 150 words. And they tracked who opened, how long it was opened for, and whether it was replied. Then they sent the same beginning and end of the email. They just chopped out the bit in the middle. So they took the 149 words and chopped it down to about 50 and sent that out. Now, they did this study with over 100,000 people, so it was a really good sample size. The read rate and the reply rate were almost double when the email was shorter. They didn't add anything. They didn't change anything. They just took out content from the middle, almost double the read rate, almost double the response rate. That's pretty valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So the moral of the story is clearly articulate the purpose of the email in your ask, right? And
right up front.
yeah,
Strip out the detail. One of the things that we as humans do, this is very human nature, is we put in extra detail where we're talking, whether we're writing emails, and we put in extra detail for two reasons. One is we feel the other person needs to know all of this stuff to be able to answer the question. Whereas actually that's very rarely true. And the second is we want to demonstrate that we've done some work, or there's evidence that we've put in the effort or tried lots of different things before asking for help or looking for the next step. And most of the time, we don't, as the recipients, we don't care. Like, okay, you want next Tuesday off work? Tell me you want next Tuesday off work. You don't have to give me the 73 reasons why your nan's dog walker fell over and this is happening. And like, okay,
right.
You want next Tuesday off work? Start with that. If I have questions, I will let you know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Chris, I would like to also ask you another question based on another one of your books. So from 39 Ways to Make Training Stick, can you suggest ways to ensure that communication training for technical teams has a lasting impact?
Yes, and no. So part of the reason I say yes and no is the answer will depend on the topic, on the group, on the tools available. And that's one of the reasons there are 39 ways in the book, and actually more ways beyond that. But in every case, when you want communication training to stick, and we'll use the example of with tech teams, communication training will only stick when the methods taught are applied consistently over time. So using some of the specific methods from the book, there's something called accountability buddies, which, let's say you and I had been in a training session together and we paired up to be accountability buddies to help each other do better. And what we would do is every couple of days after the training, you'd give me a call and say, hey, Chris, are you using the stuff that we've taught? And every time I heard you present, let's say it was presentation training, I would take some notes and give you some feedback. We commit to each other to help reinforce the training. So accountability buddies is a great way to do it. It's like having a training partner at the gym. You're more likely to go, you're more likely to do those extra reps.
Yeah.
Something else that can help is integrating the training with daily tasks. If you'd come to one of my workshops for how to get to the point and how to be clear and concise, towards the end of the session, we spend a bit of time working out what you can do to build the methods into your daily tasks. And it might be you create a template in Outlook. So every time you send a meeting invitation, it has specific labels already in the invitation. So you know and are reminded to put in the information that's valuable, that's important. So it's small things like that to help give repeatable application of what is taught over time.
I like it. Quite practical advice in your book, I would say. And the 39 pointers, I think, are very, very well considered. And,
Well, you know,
it's like anything. You could read a book, you could go to training, but at the end of the day, to apply that, and it's kind of like the purpose of this podcast. We mention this at the beginning of every podcast. When you can really reflect and apply what you've learned, that's when you really move the needle, right? And
yes,
I like your idea of the training buddy. It helps create accountability. It helps create the ability to put into practice, with some support and a resource, what you've learned. So great insight.
Oh, I've just thought of an example that is really relevant to something we've talked about already and to the audience. Can I share that?
Yeah, of course, please.
So we talked about GPS earlier, the goal problem solution. And when I was working was one of the leaders of a big IT department for a while, and they were adopting agile processes and having daily stand-ups. And I suspect many of your listeners will be involved in daily stand-ups or weekly stand-ups of one form or another. And GPS is a really good way to give your update in that stand-up meeting. So if the team decided to make that the default method to raise an issue or to give an update, hey, so our goal is to deliver this user story during the next 3 days. The problems we're facing are X and Y, and here's what I'm going to do about it to solve it today. That gives a very simple framework. Then the team can reinforce each other during that stand-up and say, hey, Fred, you didn't, like, come on, use GPS. Don't give us all that background. What's the goal? What's the problem? And then give us 2 lines for a solution. And if the team finds it valuable, they can then use that method and support and remind and reinforce each other to make those stand-ups clearer and shorter.
Great advice. Great advice. It reminds me of some conversations we had. We had a couple of guests on talking about effective communication and effective meetings. I think that's another area that's kind of underestimated and underemphasized within organizations. Just so you can check the box and say you had a formal meeting to discuss a topic, that doesn't mean that the meeting was effective and efficient.
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh, and I've done whole podcast episodes with people on this. I run a full day training program and varying short ones. I do sort of 90 minutes, half day and full day on having successful meetings. It is so undervalued. Everybody has a bad meeting story, and they often have more than one every day of the week. And yet we don't get taught how to run good meetings.
Some of my pet peeves, Chris, are, you get into a meeting and people are on phones and texting. They come in, 10 minutes late to a half-hour meeting. And, it's just, and then there's no agenda in the invite or whatever. You're not even sure what the agenda is. And then it's quite easy to go off tracks, and you're talking about a topic and it's not even the original purpose of the meeting. So I really think, as simple as that may seem to some people, I think within an organization, I think that has a tremendous impact on the tone of even the organizational culture.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I can give you 3 words that can solve that problem.
What's that?
Topic, purpose, and output. When you plan for a meeting, in one sentence, say, what is the topic? Another sentence, say, what is the purpose of the meeting? And then output, not outcome, but output. What will the meeting produce? And you should be able to print it out or write it down. And it might be a decision, a list of ideas, a solution to a problem. But if you can say those 3 things and put them in the invitation, here's what happens. 1, you know what the meeting's going to be about when you set it up. 2, everyone else who goes to the meeting knows what it's about and what they're going to be producing. 3, you've got your introduction already written. Hey, everyone, we're here to talk about this. The reason why, here's our purpose, and by the end, we'll produce this output. And then you've got everything you need to measure progress throughout the meeting. Are we making progress towards the output? We're halfway through the meeting. Are we halfway towards the output? 3 words, massive difference in meeting effectiveness.
And I would say, Chris, by doing that, in a way, you're creating a bit of seriousness, if that's the right word, and intent and discipline to the meeting. You're setting a tone right out of the gates that, look, this isn't a meeting to come in and check text and come in late. Or to waste anybody's time, frankly. It's meant to be a productive meeting. Here's what we're going to talk about. When you do that, you frame up the discipline and the way that the meeting is conducted, I think.
Oh, yep. And people know why they're there. Hey,
exactly.
This project, this topic has nothing to do with me. Do I have to be here? You give people so much ability to self-select in or out with good, clear information. Topic, purpose, output. Use those 3 things. It's a game changer.
Well, Chris, because I enjoy learning from real world experiences, could you share, maybe put you on the spot here a little bit, but could you share an example of a communication breakdown that you've helped resolve and what strategies you use to resolve that breakdown?
Absolutely. And I assume you're looking for a work one, not me trying to negotiate ice cream portions with my daughter.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
Okay, because I've got lots of those stories.
Yeah, right.
So at work, I'll go back to my agile days, and the situation is this: we were in a planning meeting on an agile program, and I realized that is a contradiction, saying agile and program, but that's a conversation for another time. So we're in a planning session. The business team, I'm going to use air quotes here, the business team just wanted an extra couple of data columns on a report. And the problem was the data was not in an easily accessible data warehouse. It would have required linking loads of legacy systems together. Not impossible, but definitely not a 10-minute job. And the problem that was happening in the meeting is the business and IT teams could not agree on what needed to be done and why it was not simple. And both sides were getting a mix of sort of heated discussion and then starting to shut down and check out from the conversation. Some people were just no longer involved at all, and other people were really getting quite heated in the way they were talking. And the reason was neither side understood what the other people were saying, what their questions were, what the requests were, or the explanations. So what I did was, again, I used GPS. It's not a magic solution, but it certainly helps. And in this case, I used it to go step by step to gain an understanding of what each group needed. So first of all, what was each group's goal? And first, what was the business goal and what was the business problem? And then what was the IT team's goal, which was really to support the business, but the problem was they couldn't do it in the time frame the business wanted a solution for. And so bit by bit, I translated or I guess rephrased each team's sentences to ensure that it was coming across in a universally understandable way. And in the end, the IT team realized that they could understand what the business goal was and why it was important. And this is the really valuable bit, the business team understood why it wasn't as simple as just adding a couple of columns.
Yeah.
And which this is such a common scenario from my experience and listening to others that, I just want to add this button, but behind the scenes is a tangled web of 38 legacy systems. And so the key lesson for anyone facing this situation or something similar is break the topic down into really small pieces. Make sure that everybody is clear on what the business team's goal is before moving on. And make sure you understand what the business team problem they want to solve is. Then talk about what are the problems with achieving that goal from a technical perspective. But strip out the detail and find some way that both sides can say, yes, we understand and we agree with that statement. And then move on to the next bit of the conversation.